What's the best example you have witnessed of someone destroying their own happiness/life? Hello everyone! Do not forget to put a like and subscribe to the channel. Enjoy watching. Story 1. I worked on a school bus as a monitor aide. There was one driver, we'll call him Ed. Ed was always complaining about something. Every single day there was some new issue, some problem. He was a bit of a pain. He got into an argument with one of our supervisors over the radio one day and earned himself a 3-day suspension. His first morning back from his suspension, first route of the day, he gets on the radio and starts back complaining. Dispatch asks him a few simple questions. He responds with hostility and some really unprofessional comments. The director of transportation, our big boss, gets on the radio and asks Ed to meet him in his office after morning routes. Ed responds, "I'll be there if I have time." Boss says, "I need you to understand, this is not optional." Ed comes back, "I need you to understand, I'll be there if I have time." Mind you, this is on the radio as we are picking up high school kids. Everyone can hear what's happening this entire time. Another dispatcher calls in and tells Ed, "When you finish your high school route, park your bus there at the school. We are bringing someone to take your route over and to bring you back to the lot." Ed did not like this and responded by saying, "Negative, I am finishing my route. Me. If you want someone to drive my route, you get, our boss's boss, and have her come drive this route. Otherwise, I am finishing my route." Dispatch asked for an ETA to the high school. He responded, "Whenever our boss's boss is going to be there. Otherwise, I get there when I get there." Somewhere around this time, he starts talking like they were targeting him and picking on him and that it ends today. Again, at this point, he has a bus full of high school kids. Now, I did not see what happened at the high school, but I heard from several other drivers. Apparently, the police were waiting for him once he got there, and they removed him from his bus. To quote one driver, "He acted a fool the entire time." I'm not sure exactly what he was charged with. Maybe kidnapping, since he acted like he wasn't going to bring the kids to school unless he got what he wanted. Theft for not bringing the bus back. No clue. But I do know he was arrested and fired. A few days later, we get the news that he had a heart attack and died, most likely from all the stress. Story 2. Some guy at work was caught red-handed stealing AirPods from the locker room. When he was sent to pick up his own kit before being sent home, he excused himself to go to the toilet and took a shit on the floor. The kicker is that we work on an oil rig. It's impossible to get away with theft, and he was a senior technician making really good money. He didn't need the AirPods, he was just stealing for the fun of it. He's now not required back, and all the companies talk to each other. He shat away his career over a pair of AirPods. Story 3. My dad. He was a really talented mechanic and the shop foreman. Well-liked, made great money, loved his job, owned a nice house in a beautiful neighborhood, in a port town we all loved. Married to a wonderful woman, my mom, had 2 kids. He just couldn't stop drinking. He became abusive and horrible. Lost everything. His house, his job, his family. He drank himself to death when I was 19, and my sister was 17. He died alone. To her enormous credit, after she left, my mom put herself through school and supported us all on her own. She got blacklisted by my dad's family and hers, since the divorce was something they all looked down upon, and felt she shouldn't shame the family. They even threatened to gang up on her and lie in court saying she was on drugs. She was not. It was the bravest and best thing she ever could have done for us. At the funeral, all these same people just kept telling her how brave she was, and we didn't know how bad he was till years later. My sister and I are both successful, thriving adults with great professions. We have our own families and children. We both own our houses and have a good income. We're well educated. Our lives are filled with love. It's all thanks to my mom. Over the years, I think about my dad from time to time. Having my own children now, a husband, all of whom I love dearly. I can't imagine any scenario I would ever put them through that. I don't feel sad about it anymore, but it's just such a waste. His whole life. And for what? Some liquid in a bottle? And addiction is a terrible thing. Edit to add, my mom is a rock star. Nice to know the internet thinks so too. The 3 of us don't have contact with either side of the family anymore and haven't for a long time. We love our little trio that has grown to include in-laws, grandchildren, and lots of friends. Your family is who you make it. Don't waste time on people who don't love you. Story 4. My brother was offered a really well-paying job doing something he's excellent at. He thought it would be too easy, so he chose a much more challenging job in a less appealing environment with a boss who was a real jerk. He hoped to impress him. Now, he's really unhappy. I just don't understand why he puts himself through this kind of thing. Story 5. Our daughter is 25. Every few years, she just randomly blows up her life. tells us not to call, talk to her, cuts off her real friends and makes them hate her, ends up calling us months later because she's out of options, friends. She's currently living with us, rent-free, no job, but has some plan on moving south with randos from the internet. Can't talk to her without her getting angry. We don't know what to do. It's so unsafe. She had a good job a year ago, had a nice 2-bedroom apartment, a great friend who picked her up for work every day. Story 6. My younger brother broke up with a girl he liked because she farted in her sleep. He was telling my older brother and I that he was in the midst of a miserable dry spell and how he'd been seeing a girl he liked, but then she farted in her sleep and he was so grossed out because there are some things you don't need to see you're so doing. It just felt like the mystery was gone. My older bro was like, yeah, 'cause that's what the mystery was about, farting. I called younger bro a fucking moron, and older bro was like, you're half right. Story 7. My ex-wife, we had sort of realized that things wasn't going to work out in the long run, but we wanted to solve things as amicably as possible and take the time. There was no real animosity other than things just not working. Until OFC, I found out she had some boyfriend staying there when I wasn't home. If she told me beforehand, I probably wouldn't even be that pissed, but just expedited the breakup so she could do what she wanted. But OFC, when I come home and literally find him, I got pissed. And instead of being any sort of humble or try to talk, she just screams and shouts that I could just go and she now had a new guy that would take care of her. I said okay, grabbed my stuff, gave her the bill for the rent and said's it due in 3 days, but your fella will OFC take care of that. Goodbye. He was the one that got the problem because then she kind of had to go all in, and he did for a few months and then basically told her that it wasn't really in the deal plan to literally take over a wife with 2 kids, not mine, on a random Tuesday. And then she had to spend the next 10 years working all kinds of things 15 hours a day to be able to keep an apartment and so on. We are friends today and that I don't hate her, so we talk once in a while, and she says that that was the dumbest day in her life. Not just sitting down and discuss for even 5 minutes. Story 8. My buddy Steve was the poster child for has it all. Good career, amazing wife, cute house. Then the model trains happened, not little setups. This guy took over the whole basement, then the garage. His wife went from amused to livid. Arguments turned into screaming matches. She eventually left, and Steve, in his model train bliss, barely noticed. The twist? He inherited a ton of money and spent it all on antique train sets. Eventually, though, he noticed, and no model could cure the blues of losing his incredible wife. Story 9. I used to work at a wedding reception place. One wedding, the groom and a bridesmaid, I think it was the bride's cousin, got drunk and snuck out the back for a quickie. I didn't realize they'd done this and, as I did, threw a bag of rubbish off the upstairs kitchen balcony into the bin, which scared the shit out of them enough that the bridesmaid has bitten down on the groom's dick mid-blowjob. Lots of blood. Then when the ambulance has shown up, the guys tried to start a fight with one of the ambulance drivers for some reason, and we ended up having to call the cops as well, and the guy's gotten arrested. Guy's boss, fairly high-paying lawyer job by the sounds of it, was at the wedding and was definitely planning on sacking the guy after what happened. So the dickhead lost both his fiancée wife and job on his wedding day. And I never found out just how bad the injury to his dick was, but it didn't look good. NB. I put drunk in scare quotes because the other thing that had happened that night is that I'd fucked up with the beer kegs and we'd been serving light, low-alcohol beer as full strength that night. So this guy had been acting drunk, but hadn't actually had very much to drink at all. Story 10. My own mother, great husband, kids to be proud of. Mental health got the best of her, and instead of recognizing it and taking accountability to get help, she lost it on us, mentally, verbally, a few times physically. My dad tried to talk her into going to therapy or couples counseling. I once asked her, "Mom, are you happy?" And her response was, "I'm not the one who has changed. You all have." That was all the answer I needed. We couldn't take it anymore, and divorce was the only way out. She was spiteful about it, even though divorce was also what she wanted. A list of shit she did. Tried to tell the neighbors my dad was dangerous and asked if she could store stuff at their houses. They turned her down. Tried to tell my grandma, her mother, that my dad was dangerous. My grandma knew it was BS and called her out on it. My mom never said a word to her again and was a bitch last year when my grandma was dying. I was in undergrad at the time and my younger sister was in high school and would text me when she was scared. Mom pulled a knife on Dad, among other events. She tried to ground my 20-year-old self when I was home from college for the summer. She was pissed about something, who knows what, and chased me out of the house on my way to work. She was trying to tell me I wasn't allowed to go to work, but I had the keys in hand and was faster than her on foot. I got in the car and left for work. Before papers were served for divorce, my mom called the cops on my dad. She claimed she had a restraining order and wanted him removed. So, my dad lived in a hotel over my spring break. I visited him. He was not okay. He lost a lot of weight going through that heartache. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, and he filed for divorce. During divorce court, she tried telling the judge how dangerous my dad was, but only went off about dust collecting on stuff in her closet. Judge dismissed any thought that my dad was dangerous. Rightfully so, my dad was our superhero. I only ever feared my mom. The first time she called me since moving out post-divorce was to scream at me over the phone about how the check I wrote to her for the car, $300, bounced. Technically, I didn't owe her shit. The car was gifted to me in their divorce. I explained to her that she took like 4 months to deposit it, and by then, fall semester tuition was due. I paid for my own college, so I was fresh out of money. I didn't have $300 anymore. She wouldn't drop it. Called my dad crying, and he transferred $300 into my account and told me to call her back and tell her to try it again in the next couple days, to shut her up and get her to stop harassing me about it. I went to therapy and have come to the conclusion that she wasn't always like this. As a kid, she was an awesome mom. Would ride our bikes to the library, camping trips, arts and crafts, very involved mother. I think as we grew older and more independent, her stay-at-home mom status was expiring and she didn't know what to do. She probably had buried some trauma from her abusive father, and it stormed to the surface and she took it out on us. Her actions cost her everything. There is no relationship with her daughters, and if I have kids, she will not be allowed to meet them. I can't trust that she will respect my boundaries if we reconnected. Story 11. I had a very close friend whose wife, out of the blue, suddenly asked to open the marriage. This friend hated the idea but said yes anyway. Result: divorce, messy and angry, and messing up all 3 of their kids. The point of contention was that he wound up finding a very compatible side partner himself, and his wife apparently was shocked to discover he was swinging just as happily as she was. Apparently, her expectation was that he'd never be able to find a girlfriend, so she, the wife, would have her side piece and her husband all to herself. Wife was jealous and angry and eventually demanded they unclose the marriage because she didn't like him being with other partners while she was with other partners. Thankfully, at this point, he finally saw things for what they are, and they divorced. Wrecked his life for years, though. Moral of the story: polygamy is complicated and not something to rush into just because you've hit your midlife crisis. Also, don't agree to open your damn marriage if you don't really want that. Story 12. Myself, in a roundabout way. About 6 years ago, I met an awesome woman who's been my girlfriend ever since. We share a lot of the same interests, enjoy the same entertainment. We're both supportive of each other, and very financially responsible. Everything almost too perfect. We got an apartment together for a few years, and a little over a year ago opted to purchase a home together. A first for both of us. Nothing fancy, but a nice place, and it's ours. Well, it was anyway. She moved here from Venezuela, and when we met, her parents were still living there. If you don't already know, Venezuela is a shitty place to be right now. Now we were under the understanding that since her father had went to school in the U.S., and ran into a little bit of legal trouble skipping a court date, he wouldn't be able to even visit the U.S., much less move here, and her mom obviously wouldn't leave him alone, so they would just both be in their home country. This was the idea we had in mind when we bought our relatively small house. Well, that all changed with some Biden initiative to allow Venezuelan immigrants to come over. So her father had my GF hire some lawyer to cover the legal issue, and now her parents are living with us. They have other family here in Florida, but they all have some bullshit going on where they can't stay with them. So we're the ones that got stuck. They're old and needy. My GF works a full-time job, and as soon as she gets off work, they're asking her to do this or that. He needs help with some app. She needs help sending money, blah blah. He went out and got a car that my GF co-signed for, with maybe $5,000 he had to cover costs while he found a job. His car payment is more than double mine. Guy just spent the next few months sitting around the house all day trying to get some event planning scheme started. Wasn't until the money was out that I actually had to sit down with my girlfriend and say, "You're not going to be taking over that car payment and car insurance for him. He either gets a job or we sell the car and cut the losses." Now he just drives for Uber Eats or whatever, just to cover the cost of the car. Her mom is nice enough, cooks most every day and keeps the kitchen clean. But man, it sucks. They're here all day every day, always in the living room. Her mom is way too chatty and her dad just blasts shit from his phone because he doesn't like headphones. So I spend a good chunk of my time holed in my room, barely getting to enjoy the house that I pay for every month. And again, they're old. They're gonna have health problems, and they're gonna be here expecting all kinds of support for all that. I think I'm just venting here, but goddamn, I didn't sign up for this shit. I thought maybe they had some plan to get their situation settled, but it really seems like the plan was just to move in here and leech. We had a good thing going, but now it's like we don't have the energy or time to even enjoy our relationship anymore. Basically, zero intimacy now, and I feel like I'm locked into this mortgage. I know it wasn't the intent, but I can't shake the feeling that I got hoodwinked, scammed, roped into a bullshit situation. Honestly, I just needed to vent it.